The Interdimensional Voyagers podcast. Poem, Old Shuck, the Darkness Dog. Quiet. It's expected, even by day. A place for rest, a cemetery no less. Not to be disturbed, if you might, the dog that stays, to take your word, and not a breath is heard. And so you will be also forever at peace, upon which treads a terrible beast. It's black as night, large and broad, with glowing eye it surveys its hoard. And by name it comes, by night it stays, so don't call it lest you plan to run away, or lay forever cold in that ground, to another victim of fright, this hound. Many names this beast of black, many songs upon its back. In the darkness they that sing, the shuck, the music the darkness brings. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as I enjoyed writing it. Okay, with this podcast I'm going to be talking about basically the shuck, a black dog that frequents cemeteries, often seen. A long history of a strange large black dog. Going to be delving into folklore and also recent stories as well. So anyway, I hope you enjoy. If you do, leave a comment, let me know. Right. Some say monsters are made. They are made by us out of our fears of the unknown, fearful of the things that could or may hurt us. An evolutionary learned survival mechanism. Like, don't go into that dark cave, for example, something may attack. I don't believe all monsters are those that we create by imagination or stories to scare children. All of us, however, matter, a fact, or black and white, in our judgment of matters, balancing on the edge of reason and myth. We all, however deep, have a little part of us that wonders what is in that dark black cave. Some monsters are too rare, too ambiguous, so far-fetched that without credible basis of the story or legend. It in itself has to be based on some fragment of long-lost truth. I believe these are true monsters that have always stepped on the peripherals of our known world. Often seen and documented by people, a large majority of which, the people citing these entities, are of good character and standing within a community. These are not fanciful imaginings I hope to highlight in the following podcast. A broad spectrum of encounters and observations, both written testimonials and historical background on the entity, we have come to call in recent times the Dogman. Okay. This first story dates back to October the 9th, 1996. Based in, you might already know it, but I'll go over it again. Camberwell Cemetery. Okay. The man, he doesn't want his name out in public, so that's fine. The man was 26 at the time and was on his way to meet a friend who lived in Underhill Road in South East London. In order to walk there, he had to make a long trek heading southwest past Camberwell New Cemetery, and then down the entire length of Brenchley Gardens and around Camberwell Old Cemetery. He decided to cut through the older cemetery to save 20 minutes off walking time, even though it was already dark, and the idea of walking through the cemetery at night was freakishly scary. He said he normally rode his bicycle to his friend's house, but their plans for the evening precluded his usual means of transport. He didn't have a flashlight, and the cemetery had no lighting system, so he could see only a few feet ahead of him as he made his way across the grounds. He was well into the middle of the graveyard when the movement of something very large and dark caught his eye. I swear I saw what I thought was a dog, a big dog, move very quickly, he said. He stopped and squinted into the darkness, but decided his mind was playing tricks on him, and started off again. He did not get very far. It was then, in a flash of life changed forever, he later wrote. It was so quick that I never had a chance. I thought that somebody had literally run into me and knocked me over. Something had grabbed me by my arm very tightly and smashed me to the ground. It was big, it was powerful, it had extremely bad breath, and it smelt cold and awful. This thing was now bearing down on me, looking directly at my face, dribbling into me and growling, he said. But it was the creature's next action that truly frightened him. It began to eagerly sniff his body up and down, exactly as a dog would do. I was convinced I was going to die, he said. I'm afraid to say that as brave as I think I might be, I was not. At this point, and shamefully, I soiled myself. As I lay there, being smelled, I was waiting for the bite. But that never happened. Just as quick as it started, it was over. The beast was gone and sprinted off in a flash. It sprinted away on its hind legs. Okay, this other story is an older one, dated France, 1764. Jean Boulet, a 14-year-old shepherd girl, was tending livestock in the wooded valleys near the Allier River in the Jovdon region of southern France. Now, look, if I get the pronunciation wrong, then I do apologise. Okay, I'm trying. Jovdon region of southern France, central southern France. One day in June 1764, her badly injured body was discovered, the victim of an apparent wolf attack. Her death did not seem unusual at the time. Children often shepherded sheep or cattle by themselves, and wolves were part of the hazards of rural life. More fatalities like Boulet's followed with severe injuries, dismemberments, and even decapitations. Whatever this deadly creature was, it was far more ferocious than a regular wolf. As whispers of a werewolf began to circulate, the deadly creature became known as Le Bête, the beast. It would terrorise Jovdon for 3 years, killing as many as 100 people, although some sources claim the total could be as high as 300. Between 1764 and 1767, more than 100 wolves were killed in Jovdon, but scholars are still trying to determine if any of them was the deadly beast responsible for the attacks. That was a strange one. Okay, I just want to go across now, even older, just to some biblical accounts and references. 2 black dogs, in general, really. I was going through reading this, and I thought, oh, I've just got to mention about these. Okay, what does Genesis 2 verse 18 mean? And in it says, God declares that he will make a helper that is fit or suitable or corresponds to the man. In other words, he will make another person, like the man, another human built, with the purpose of being the man's helper and companion. Scholars usually understand the dogs listed among those outsiders, this is another part of the Bible, to the holy city in Revelation 22 verse 14 to 15 as a metaphor. Okay, so the dogs outside the holy city in Revelations is taken as a metaphor for false teachers or immoral practitioners. I suggest that they might also be understood in relation to the next category on the list, the sorcerers, who in fact can be understood as scapegoats. The article examines the role of dogs in rituals of purification, especially those used in the cult of Hecate, an underworld goddess often associated with dogs. I suggest that Revelation 22 rejects her cult and claims that purification is only through those who have washed their clothes in the blood of the Lamb. Now bear with me, okay? Right, Revelation this is. Revelation 22 verse 14 to 15. Okay, so this is it. Blessed are those who wash their robes, that they may have the right to the tree of life, and they may go through the gates into the city. Okay, verse 15. Outside are the dogs, those who practice magic arts, the sexually immoral, the murderers, the idolaters, and everyone who loves and practices falsehood. Verse 16. I, Jesus, have sent my angel to give you this testimony for the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David and the bright morning star. Again, the Bible does not suggest that any animal missed the ark. Besides, Noah was given a direct order by God, take every beast, fowl, and any other living thing that creepeth upon the earth into the ark. 17th century New England. To call someone a dog was an insult of the highest order, as dogs were believed to be used by sorcerers to carry out evil commands. Translated from German, devil dogs was a term used by Germans to scorn the US Marines during World War II. Another interesting one, the Beatles song, A Day in the Life, has a frequency only dogs can hear. Small dogs can hear sounds in higher ranges than big dogs. Might account for type 1 Dogmen, or the Shuck, as they look very closely alike, with big pointy ears, more dog-like looking. The job title of Dogman is a reference to a dog, which is a mechanical device used for gripping and not the animal. The term became popular in Australia in the 1940s and has stuck ever since. But dogmen are still referred to as spotters. Now, I believe that Dogman Type 1 is a spotter that you find in the forests and woods. I've seen and got video before now, and I believe they're spotters as well, hence their really large pointy ears. They're a lot bigger than a normal dog. Those are the ones that we're talking about here. Right, now, Anubis was an ancient Egyptian god of the dead, mummification and embalming. He was often depicted as a man with the head of a jackal or dog. Anubis was the one who weighed the hearts of the deceased against the feather of Mahat. Anubis was also responsible for protecting the tombs of the dead. So that's strange, a correlation between Anubis protecting the tombs of the dead and sightings in United Kingdom and other places of black dogs protecting and patrolling cemeteries. Okay, what is the legend of Old Shuck? In Norfolk, Suffolk, Lincolnshire and the northern parts of Essex, a black dog known as Black Shuck, also Old Shuck or Shock, is regarded as malevolent, with stories ranging from terrifying people or killing them outright to being a portent of death to themselves or a person close to the victim or the person seeing it. So basically, kind of, you don't really want to see one. I shall go into more detail on this most famous and enduring of the UK accounts in a bit, so just stick with me, yeah? Some people describe these as separate from black dogs or Black Shuck. They call them hellhounds, which you've got like the Hound of the Baskervilles as well, famous story, Sherlock Holmes story. But here we're specific about, not hellhounds, we're specific really about black dog. A famous representation would be in an American television series. This is Hellhounds, okay, which is different. Don't know if you remember the Supernatural with the Winchester brothers. In this famous representation, however, the hounds were invisible. Okay, in Greek mythology, the hellhound belonged to Hades, the Greek god of death and the underworld. Its name in Greek mythology is Cerberus. Sorry about that. Cerberus. It has 3 heads, but is still black with razor-sharp teeth and super strength. It is used to guard the gates of hell. What god is associated with black dogs? As previously mentioned, Hecate, the most sacred animal, was the dog. In a description offered by Apollonius of Rhodes, Hecate's presence was accompanied by the sound of dogs' barks from the underworld. Ancient authors such as Ovid and Pausanias indicate that dogs, particularly black dogs, were sacrificed to the goddess. How powerful was Hecate? Her power was so vast that she dwarfed the magical abilities of the witch Circe. She was also capable of facing off against other kind, who were just as powerful. She was in the multiverse disintegration. So she sent another being called, against the other kind. That's what they were called. She sent those into the multiverse, and ultimately they were just disintegrated. Hecate has the ability to incinerate creatures by moving a finger. Hecate's appearance is dark-haired and beautiful, but with an eerie edge to that beauty befitting a goddess of the night. Though the actual goddess of the night is Nyx. Symbols of Hecate are her place, the crossroads, 2 torches, and black dogs. She is sometimes known to be holding a key. Hecate was the chief goddess presiding over magic and spells. She witnessed the abduction of Demeter's daughter, Persephone, to the underworld, and, torch in hand, assisted in the search for her. Thus pillars called Hecatea stood at crossroads and doorways, perhaps to keep away evil spirits. Hecate was represented as single-formed, clad in a long robe, holding burning torches. In later representations, she was triple-formed, with 3 bodies standing back to back, probably so that she could look in all directions at once from the crossroads. She was accompanied by packs of barking dogs. Humans and dogs are 95% identical genetically, and the diseases that affect humans, including breast cancer, prostate cancer, melanoma, are almost identical. Now, dogs, medieval times, were also used, especially black dogs, were quite sacred, and one of the jobs they were used for was digging up mandrake. Mandrake was had special properties. It was poisonous, I believe, but in quantity, but it did have special properties, magical properties for used in witchcraft as well. Very healing, as I understand. But mandrake is called the man root because when it comes up, it's quite inherently difficult to pull up. But when it is up, the shape of the root is that of a man. A shovel's used to dig around the mandrake and to expose its roots, while a silver shovel was recommended. This is not an absolute requirement. A rope should then be tied around the top of the plant. The other end should be tied to the tail of the black dog, who's been starved for the past 2 days. By throwing the dog a piece of meat, it should give chase and pull the mandrake right from its soil. Okay, look, that I'm reciting word for word from an old medieval paragraph about how black dogs were used. Yeah, that's not great. The use of the giant mystical black dog in this account was common in olden times. Mandrake, the man root, so called because of the root shape, was used mostly by witches. And so again, the black dog is tied very strongly to sorcery. The Black Dog of Newgate Prison. Now this one surprised me. I remember hearing about it some time back, and then after digging around for information, I was like, kind of got more and more into it, more interested, and it came up again. I thought, I remember that. The Black Dog of Newgate Prison, London. Right, this monstrous creature was said to have a massive chain around its neck, and to be associated with executions, or with the avenging of the death of a sorcerer. It's all complicated and confusing, really, the stories are, when you read them. You can find them in a book called The Discovery of London Monster, called The Black Dog of Newgate. And it was published in 1638. But yeah, it's got, I think you can get it online now. Is it right? Okay, right. Is this the skeleton of legendary devil dog Black Shuck, who terrorised 16th century East Anglia? Folklore tells of 7-foot hellhound with flaming eyes. I've been reading up, and evidently not too long back, a skeleton of a supposed devil dog or Black Shuck was found. I'll go into the story a little bit. It roamed the countryside, spreading death and terror, a giant ferocious hellhound with flaming eyes and savage claws. For centuries, the beast that came to be known as Black Shuck struck fear into the hearts of all who crossed its path. Just a single glimpse was enough to impart a fatal curse, the briefest encounter sufficient to suck the life from any hapless victim. Now, that may be about to change with an answer to the question, did it exist only in folklore, or was it flesh and blood? 500 years after Black Shuck first went on the prowl, archaeologists were examining the skeleton of a 7-foot-long dog unearthed in the remains of an ancient abbey. It was discovered a few miles from the two churches where Black Shuck is said to have killed worshippers during an almighty thunderstorm in 1577. I think the best way I'm going to do it is I'm going to tell you the story about that. Okay. Now, the story of Old Shuck. What is the meaning of Shuck, first of all? Other names include Shock, Old Scarf, Old Ruckman, Old Shep, and the hateful thing. The word Shuck comes from the Anglo-Saxon Skuka, meaning devil. Even in appearance, the Shuck can vary enormously. Some tales depict it as a hound as big as a cow. Black Shuck, Old Shuck, or simply Shuck, is the name given to an unknown creature said to roam in East Anglia. Black Shuck is one of many ghostly black dogs recorded across the British Isles. The famous sighting in Bungay and Blythesburg is a particularly famous account of the beast, and images of black sinister dogs have become part of the iconography of the area. Also in Wales, a very similar creature is called, I'll probably get this wrong as well, Gwilligi, Gwylgi, Gwilligi. I hope I get that right. Myths and legends, sometimes recorded as an omen of death, sometimes a more companionable animal. It is classified as a cryptid. According to folklore, the spectre haunts the landscapes of East Anglia, primarily coastline, graveyards, side roads, crossroads, bodies of water, and dark forests. Appearance. For centuries, inhabitants of England have told tales of large black dog, of malevolent flaming eyes, or in some variants of the legend, a single eye, very interesting, that are red or alternatively green. These eyes are described as being like saucers. In some accounts, it only has one eye, which is in the middle of the forehead like a cyclops. There are varying accounts of Black Shuck's appearance, especially in size. According to reports, the beast varies in size and stature from that of simply a large dog to being the size of a calf or even a horse. Sometimes Black Shuck is recorded as having appeared headless, and at other times as floating on a carpet of mist. However, it is generally described as about the size of a mastiff, with shaggy black fur and glowing red eyes. I also found this. W.A. Dutt, in his 1901 Highways and Byways of East Anglia, describes the creature as thus. He takes the form of a huge black dog and prowls along dark lanes and lonesome field footpaths, where although his howling makes the hearer's blood run cold, his footfalls make no sound. You may know him at once, should you see him, by his fiery eye. He has but one, and that, like the Cyclops, is in the middle of his head. But such an encounter might bring you the worst of luck. It is even said that to meet him is to be warned that your death will occur before the end of the year. So you will do well to shut your eyes. If you hear him howling, shut them, even if you are uncertain whether it is the dog fiend or the voice of the wind you hear. Should you never set eyes on our Norfolk snarly owl. It's another name for the Shuck. Snarly owl. Must be an old Norfolk name. You may perhaps doubt his existence, and like other learned folks, tell us that his story is nothing but the old Scandinavian myth of the Black Hound of Odin, brought to us by the Vikings who long ago settled down on the Norfolk coast. Killing parishioners of a church. One of the most notable reports of Black Shuck is of his appearance in the churches of Bungay and Blythesborough in Suffolk. Okay, this is the story, okay? On the 4th of August 1577, at Blythesborough, Black Shuck is said to have burst in through the church doors to a clap of thunder. He ran up the nave, past a large congregation, killing a man and boy and causing the church steeple to collapse through the roof. As the dog left, he left scorch marks on the north door that can be seen at the church to this very day. The encounter on the same day at Bungay was described in a strange and terrible wonder by the Reverend Abraham Fleming in 1577. Now, Adams was a clergyman from London and therefore probably only published his account based on exaggerated oral accounts. The other local accounts attribute the event to the devil. Abrahams calls the animal the devil, in such a likeness. So basically, Abrahams thought it was the devil in likeness to the dog. The scorch marks on the door are referred to by locals as the devil's fingerprints. The devil's fingerprints. And the event is remembered in this verse. All down the church, in the midst of fire, the hellish monster flew, and passing onward to the choir, he many people slew. Dr. David Waldrow and Christopher Reeve, that's not Superman, I guess, suggests that a fierce electrical storm recorded by contemporary accounts on that date, coupled with the trauma of the ongoing Reformation, may have led to the accounts entering folklore. One thing, however, has always been absent from the many tales of a dog-like entity and its sinister appearance in the East of England flatlands. A single fact. That's the thing. There may be, just maybe, might be a fact. Next stop for the dog was 12 miles away in Bungay, where 2 worshippers were killed at St Mary's Church. One was left shrivelled like a drawn purse, it was said, as he prayed. In his 1577 pamphlet, although his howling makes the hearer's blood run cold, his footfalls also make no sound. Now, this is interesting to me. Although his howling makes the listener's blood run cold, yes, accounts of howling heard recently, both in the Bigfoot community and Dogman community, witnessing, and have recorded harrowing howls and screams akin to nothing heard before, much like a siren sounds and screaming in pain to the point of torture. They do make some strange sounds. But one thing that does run true with that, and that's an account from 1577, is the sound of footfalls by the dog. Now, a lot of recent accounts also of people spotting Dogman and Bigfoot, but especially Dogman, including the black dog type 1, can't hear them walking, padding their paws through the forest, breaking twigs or stepping on leaves as they walk. So there we have also a correlation. And I quote from a passage in Strange Terrible Wonder, footfalls made no sound. That unique thing is a unique thing to say. If you didn't want to convince someone of it happening, you would be hard pushed to better that statement for being unbelievable. and in 1577, when the general feeling of the unexplained and witchcraft held a heavy price. So yeah, it's a strange thing to say back then, 1577. You know, one thing saying, okay, I saw a big black dog, but also another thing to say, my God, the black dog that I saw made no sound. I just saw it walking along, but no footfalls. Because they were very superstitious in those days. But still, yeah, this person is running into the cave that's so dark with this statement, let's face it. And I tip my hat and do believe him and the best of his description because of it. Well, basically, yeah, in 1577 he wrote it down, so it's there. The subsequent appearances of Shuck, a name believed to derive either from an Old English word for demon or from local dialect meaning shaggy, have immortalised it. An image of Black Shuck is incorporated into Bungee's coat of arms, and the nickname for equally legendary Bungee Town Football Club is the Black Dogs. Now here's the thing. Dog bones, uncovered in the ruins of Leiston Abbey, Suffolk, were first found by archaeological group Dig Ventures in a project a few years ago. The story of Black Shuck has to have originated from somewhere, and who knows, it could have originated from the dog which was buried here, said Brendan Wilkins. Painstaking work revealed the skeleton of an extremely large dog. Estimates suggest it would have weighed more than 14 stone and stood 7 foot tall on its hind legs. Now that in alone is pretty identical to a lot of sightings now that we have. I myself have had sightings as well. On video on my YouTube channel, Dogman Teepee hunting. Just go have a little look and check them out. The grave was less than 20 inches deep and unmarked. Pottery fragments found at the same level date from the height of Shuck's alleged reign. Radiocarbon dating tests will now give an exact age for the bones. Results that will serve either to enhance the shaggy dog stories or perhaps to support the far less entertaining theory that here lies a 16th century abbot's beloved old hunting dog. But that must have been a hell of a size, that hunting dog. 14 stone's a lot. Although his howling makes the hearer's blood run cold, his footfalls make no sound. The legend of Black Shuck is now so popular that images of the dog have been put up in buildings across the town, and the animal is even being incorporated into Bungee's coat of arms. There is also a black dog running club and a black dog antique shop. And the legend has even infiltrated popular culture, with British rock band The Darkness featuring a track inspired by the Devil Dog on their debut album, Permission to Land. The track, named Black Shuck, includes the lyrics, "In a town in the east, the parishioners were visited upon by a curious beast, and his eyes numbered but one, and shone like the sun, and a glance beckoned the immediate loss of a cherished one." I pay homage to The Darkness and their song, as the discerning listener has guessed in my poem at the beginning of this podcast. You have been listening to the Interdimensional Voyagers podcast. Please like and follow. I will leave a link to our YouTube channel where you can find intriguing ghost and paranormal and cryptid video content from all over. All my own stuff though, all my own videos. Thank you for your time, and hopefully, I shall get another podcast out next week. Okay, if you've enjoyed it, please like and share, and let me know in the comments as well. That'd be really cool. Okay, Take care. Bye bye.